All right. Thank you, Michael. Okay, I want to welcome everybody to our April 7th, 2021 Habitat Council meeting. This meeting focuses primarily on big game funding projects. First off, I want to thank all of our audiovisual crew, Michael, and anybody else who's there helping you out. I'm not sure who all is there today. Also, I need to thank Daniel Eddington, Danny Summers, and Allison Whitaker and Lisa Graham for all of your help with setting up Habitat Council and helping run the meeting and all of the funding numbers and notes and all the stuff that goes on with it. So I appreciate everybody's help with this. This is a public meeting and is being live streamed over YouTube. And this meeting operates under approved public meeting protocols. And so as part of that process, once motions are made, we'll ask for voting. Being in an online format, I will ask for yes votes collectively, like we've been doing this year, so far. We'll ask for the yes votes first, and then no votes will be separate. And then I'll ask you to raise your hand on your screen. Hit the little raise hand button so that we can count anybody who has voted no on a motion. So with that, we have a couple of new faces here representing some folks for the council. I will mention Dwayne Reading is unable to be part of the group today. And so we're going to do a quick introduction of council members. And so, Tyler, you go first.
Good morning, everyone. Tyler Thompson. I'm the Watershed Program Director with DNR.
Thanks, Tyler. Randy, you want to tell us who you're representing?
Yeah, my name is Randy Opplinger, and I'm the Cold Water Sportfish Coordinator for the Division of Wildlife Resources, and today I'm filling in for Drew Cushing.
Thanks, Randy. Daniel Olson.
Good morning. I'm Daniel Olson. I'm the Wildlife Migration Initiative Coordinator. I'm filling in for our Wildlife Section Chief, Justin Shannon, who's getting some much-needed time off with his family right now.
Thanks, Daniel. Thanks for filling in, being with us. Jack Ray.
I'm Jack Ray. I'm the waterfowl representative.
Thanks, Jack. Paul Burnett.
Hi, I'm Paul Burnett. I'm the aquatics rep.
Thank you. Darren West.
Darren West, I'll be representing big game.
All right. Thanks, everybody. I know that there's a couple of you that have got to jump on and off of the meeting today. We'll work to make sure that we keep our 5 people quorum to be able to move ahead. And I'm included in the 5. I could be included in the 5, so that shouldn't be a problem. So, all right. Before we move ahead, is there any questions about format or what we're doing today? All right. Just a couple more housekeeping things I want to mention. Let's see. Daniel has posted the agenda. Do we need to post the minutes from last time and review that?
Yes, we'll need to do that as well.
Okay. So really quick on the agenda, just going to point out, Daniel, maybe scroll back to the first page. There's 3 projects that are on the agenda that have been crossed out for good reasons. Last week's conservation permit funding meeting, those essentially became fully funded, and so we don't need to necessarily review those for Habitat Council. So that's a great thing. And so they're just a scratch through on the agenda. Daniel, are you able to pull up the minutes from last time? Okay, hopefully folks on the council have had the opportunity or can look at the minutes. All the voting is recorded on the minutes. And at this point, I would entertain a motion to approve these minutes.
Just a quick question from me, noting on project 5566, which is on page 3. I abstained from voting, and I don't know if that needs to reflect in the minutes, but I don't see it in there.
Yeah, it probably does. Lisa, maybe add that in if you can. Which project number was that again, Paul?
It was 5566.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you for mentioning that. All right. We have a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll make that
I'll make the
motion.
motion. I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion from Tyler to approve and a second from Paul. He spoke up first, Darren. So, all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? If there's any opposed, say no and raise your hand. Seeing none, the motion carries. Okay. Before we actually get into all the project presentations, just one last thing I want to mention. Like I said before, last week we held the conservation permit funding meeting. Tyler led that meeting, and over 3.1 million in projects or in funds were allocated to various projects that Habitat Council also often has a hand in as well. And we'll probably get into this a lot more at our next meeting, which will be our I guess overall funding meeting. But it's just awesome to see what happens when it comes together with funding. Habitat Council is a 3.3 million that we allocate, from hook and bullet money, essentially. Conservation permit is an additional over $3 million. And so, you're at 6 million right there. They're going towards a lot of these projects. But from WRI perspective, in total, we fund, between us and DNR and all the partners, upwards to 30+ million. I don't know, Tyler, if you want to have anything else you'd want to say about that, but it's awesome that we're one of the big cogs in the whole gear of how all this funding comes together every year, and it's an honor to be able to work with the Habitat Council and to fund these projects. And so this is how it all comes together. All right. Any questions before we move on? Okay. Seeing none, we're going to jump into projects here. We'll be looking to take a break at about 10:30. So we'll start with Northeast Region projects.
Eric,
yes.
do you want to go over just the budgets real quick? We have those new numbers now.
Right. So thank you, Daniel, for reminding me. So Daniel has shared the budget numbers, and I'll let you speak to them as well.
Okay, and Allison, feel free to jump in at any point here. But we've got the new budget numbers for this year. Allison's put them into the spreadsheet here. Up at the top here, you'll see the 3.3 million that Eric was just talking about. That is what is available for this year. You can also see the requested amount there of the 4 million, and then the difference that right now we're over $653,000. So it's also now broken out by all of the different categories for big game, for upland, for waterfowl, and for sport fish. So we'll go over a lot of this at the next budget meeting, but I guess just in preparation of that meeting, just review the different projects, see maybe where there might need to be some cuts or how we want to get those to the appropriate levels that Eric feels comfortable with. So if there are any questions with that, we'll share that link to the spreadsheet. You should all have it, but we'll share the link to that in the comments so that you all have access to that. But any
I've already
questions?
put it in the comments. it's already in the comments. So if you wanna look at it, you can. I was going to show you where things changed after the habitat or after the conservation permit meeting. In this column, the habitat request, if it's green, it was either reduced or taken down to 0 because of funding from the conservation groups. This project here is highlighted in yellow because it would need additional funds to, we didn't get quite enough for that one. Also keep in mind these 3 right here. I don't know if you can see that. If I need to make it bigger, I can. But they are water development projects and will most likely get picked up by Department of Ag. So that's about 150,000 of big game money that should go down once we get those approvals. So anyway, just as in preparation for the meeting, those are the changes that have happened after the conservation permit meeting. So.
No, thank you, Allison. I appreciate you going over that and sharing this. And some of these totals might continue to change between now and our next meeting, which will be on April 28th, where we kind of do a deep dive into the funding of projects and try to make sure that all of our funds are allocated as we have directed. So any questions on this before we move on? All right. Thanks, Allison and Daniel, for running through that. Again, it's just amazing how all of these monies leverage each other and come together, through WRI and through our funding streams. And so it's really great to see these moving forward. All right. Without further ado, we're going to move on. Northeast Region projects. Start with 5621 Mill Hollow Aspen Restoration Phase 2. Tori, you up on that one?
Yes, I'm here. I'm Tori Mathis, a restoration biologist in the Northeast region, filling in for Pat Rainbolt, who's out with his family on spring break this week. So the Mill Hollow project is one that we're partnering with SITLA on. It takes place on our Tabby Mountain WMA, which is the largest WMA in the state, and also on the SITLA block just to the north of the WMA. So SITLA had, I believe it was last year, done a previous phase of this project, and this year we're partnering with them to do more on their block as well as some on the Tabby Mountain WMA. So it's focused on improving aspen stands up there on the top of Tabby Mountain. If you go to the images, you can see some good pictures of what takes place. These first couple are before pictures. I'm looking at these. It's hard to pick out any aspen in there at all, but there are some remnant trees. The project is going to go in and cut out all of those conifers and also most of the aspen, leaving some legacy trees. And the idea behind that is that it stimulates new sprouts of the aspen. If you keep going through those pictures, there should see some, I guess this is a during photo. There are some following the treatment where you can see right here, new young aspen shoots coming up. All the old trees have been cut out, leaving some of those taller legacy trees in place, just to re-stimulate the aspen. Also on that photo, before you go to the next one, just on the line of where the trees are in the back, you can see a lot of the brush has been piled up, forming kind of a brush fence around these open areas now. That is aimed at reducing browsing impacts on these new young aspen. So the wood is going to be cut and stacked and merchandised to a local sawmill. Some of it will be piled and burned. It's not merchantable, and other parts of the slash will be used to create this debris fence to protect from browsing. So it's a good project needed to stimulate that aspen up there, get some new new growth to benefit deer and elk. And yeah, I don't remember what the budget is like, or what's left on what's needed, but it was almost $400,000 total. I think the conservation groups picked up some of it, but I don't remember how much. So we do have it split out, 80% big game, 20% upland game. That upland game would include turkeys, also your dusky and ruffed grouse, I believe, would benefit from this as well. So. Are there any questions?
This is Adam Robinson with Stella. Hey, I just wanted to add one other thing, another objective that we're trying to meet here is try to establish, we're trying to reduce fuels, and we're trying to establish some sort of natural fuel break utilizing the aspen along the top of Tabby. So if you look, we don't have all the polygons of our project areas, but this is kind of a line through the DWR property and our property to establish some sort of division between Red Creek and the face of Tabby, the Hannah Tabiona side. So I just wanted to note that. I don't know if it's relevant here, but it is definitely a big part of that project.
Thank you, Adam. I didn't realize you were on. I should have just let you present this one.
Well, I'm glad you did a fantastic job, so thank you.
Pat told us we were presenting, Tori, so we were all ready and we didn't even have to. So that's perfect.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, we were all dressed up and nowhere to go. So
I appreciate everybody being on for this one. Any questions? Okay, I don't see any. Do we have a motion on this one?
I got a quick question.
Oh, go ahead, Tyler.
So since Adam's on, I'm curious, Adam, we've heard of this coppice cutting method before, and I'm just curious if you wouldn't mind explaining kind of what that is and how well that works.
So coppice, it depends on I guess what part of the world you're from, how you say that. But yeah, it's basically a clear fell method. You can tweak it by throwing in reserves, and that's what we did here with the legacy trees. With aspen, this is the best way to stimulate recruitment. You stimulate the clone to bring new shoots to the surface, restarting the cycle. And that's basically the idea behind it. This is by cutting the clone, it's mimicking, I guess, fire is really what you're trying to do. That stimulation, it's just a mechanical way to stimulate the clone like firewood. There's some debate, out there between folks, which method is better, fire or mechanical. I mean, I think it's really nowadays controversial because of the risk that comes along with fire. So I think we're reaching out to these mechanical treatments to do this kind of stuff. But that's basically what we're doing, is just more or less a clear fell, or some people don't like to hear this word, but it's a clear cut essentially method, removing, in this case, treating cereal stands that are comprised of conifer as well as aspen communities. And you're just trying to basically reset that stand. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
So there's a lot of examples of this kind of work throughout the state. We have got an extensive example or project that we've done, and something that we're very proud of. A lot of aspen restoration work we've done on the LaSalle's. Some of you guys are probably familiar with that. Daniel, I don't know if you got down there and seen some of that stuff, but yeah, we've been doing this for a long time. I've got a lot of success stories, and this is kind of a continuation of that kind of effort in a different way, I guess, using funding now to do this work rather than the industry. But we are in this case using the industry for a portion of it to utilize what we can merchandise. So trying to benefit all the things we can out there with this project. So anyway, sorry if that was long-winded.
No, I appreciate that. And I'll second Darren's motion if we want to move ahead. Eric, if you're talking, we can't hear you.
Sorry, you're right. Thanks. Okay, we're going to go ahead and so we have a motion from, let's see, was that Darren? Do you have the original motion on that?
Yes.
Okay, we have a motion from Darren and a second from Tyler, correct?
Correct.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 If there are any opposed, say no and raise your hand. All right, thank you. Motion carries. Okay, so on the agenda, we're skipping the next project because it's already funded. And so we're going to move down to 5695 Red Leaf Mine Reclamation. Tori, are you up on that one again?
Well, this is also one that we've been working with Sitla on, and since Ethan is here, I'm going to let him take the lead, and I will just jump in with anything else that if I needed. So I'll let Ethan take over.
All right.
So this red leaf reclamation, we had a group out there, a mineral lease on this piece, and they decided to back out. So they're going to rehab the majority of the area. We kind of included DWR just to make sure, you know, this being in the booklets, they kind of got what they wanted out of the reclamation as well. So we've been working together on this. Last fall, we flew plateau herbicide over the whole acreage just to try to kill off some of the cheatgrass and some of the invasive species so that we could have better results from seeding. It's a pretty harsh, rough site, so any seeding we get to establish is going to be good, but that herbicide will help, you know, reduce that competition. So we applied that last fall. The idea is this fall to go in and reseed all the disturbed area, drill seed areas that we can, and broadcast other areas. I know Pat wanted to do some work. This whole area is fenced. There is a guzzler in there, and there's a couple wells that are drilled in there that produce a lot of water. So we're working on getting some water rights moved around so that we can pump one of those wells and distribute that water inside and outside of that fenced in area for wildlife, and then also outside for the livestock in the area. The fence is kind of in rough shape, so he's wanting to rebuild the fence in areas and kind of put a few kind of wildlife crossing areas, I guess, to get into this area to access the guzzler and some of the water that will be in there. They're wanting to plant some bitter brush and some, different shrub species in here. This is important winter range for the mule deer and the elk. And that's all I can think of, unless you can add anything, Tori, that you guys know you're wanting to do on your side of things.
Yeah, I think in regards to the fence, the idea with that is that there's already a fence in place, and it's a good opportunity to protect the new seeding and this rehab area from excessive grazing. Since, you know, it's been a mine, the permittee hasn't been taking his cows in there, and it's not going to take anything away from him, but it will protect this seeding. But we wanted to make some modifications to make it a little more wildlife friendly. That included replacing, I believe, replacing the top strand of barbed wire with smooth wire, and just making some modifications, leaving the fence in place to protect the area from grazing while the seeding establishes and while the rehab progresses. I think from what Ethan has said, you can probably guess that what's shown on the map there was not the entirety of this rehab effort. Like you said, there'd been some herbicide application. I believe there was going to be some aerial seeding as well. So this is what's shown on this project is a part of this rehab, and I suspect that we'll continue to work in this area for a couple of years just to make sure that everything does well and establishes. You may see future phases of this, but anyway, this is a beginning.
All right, thanks, Tori. Any questions?
Just a quick question from me. Is the mining company putting any sort of resources into the reclamation?
Yes, they're doing the majority of it. I think some of this extra stuff is just stuff DWR wanted to do to kind of fluff up the area for wildlife and kind of make it more of a wildlife friendly area. We worked with them on a seed mix, so we kind of worked together on the seed mix. You know, we're wanting something that's a little more competitive, but we also threw natives in there, and then we're gonna I think this proposal is mainly for some bitter brush and forewing to plant some more shrubs. So they're doing the initial seeding. They did the herbicide application, and it looks like this proposal is just to fix the fence, to keep the livestock and the buffalo and the horses out of the seeding so it can establish, and then to plant some more shrubs. So they're doing the majority.
Thanks.
Any other questions? All right, do we have a motion on this?
I'll make the motion to tentatively approve it for funding consideration.
Thanks, Tyler. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Thanks, Jack. All in favor, say aye.
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 If there are any opposed, say no and raise your hand. All right, there are none opposed, so the motion carries. All right, thanks, guys. Okay, we're going to move on next to Northern Region projects. The first one on the list has been crossed off. It's already funded, which is great. So we're going to move to 5545 Bear River Watershed Resilience Phase 2. Scott, is that you?
It is me.
All right.
Nate Long is the primary on these projects, but as others have already said, he's off with family, enjoying some well-needed time off. So I'm going to pitch these. And I was really excited to pitch the best named project in all of the WRI database, the Burnt Beaver Project. And it's kind of critical to talk about that one because it's over on the east end of the Uintas and above Hoop Lake, runs from Burnt Fork to Beaver Creek and to almost Poison Mountain. It's 60,000 acres. The next project, Bear River Watershed Resilience, is the bookend to that project. It's off of Highway 150 and Mirror Lake Highway, and it's the bookend. And we're just going to cut Nate loose, and he's going to connect those two projects all across the whole north slope of the Uintas. So this burnt, and it's a similar project. This phase is phase 2, and this includes some more thinning and some non-commercial thinning, trying to create fire breaks so we can do some more firework in there. Phase 1 concentrated in this area as well, also across east of the Highway 150 on the North Slope Road, doing similar work. And this is just a continuation of that work to create fuel breaks and in order to create some bigger projects in there with prescribed fire later on. And that's kind of in a nutshell what's going on here.
All right, thanks, Scott. Any questions? It's a quiet group this morning. Do we have a motion?
This is Darren. I'll make a motion to tentatively approve this for funding.
Thanks, Darren. Do we have a second?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Okay, I'll take that from Randy. All right, all in favor, say aye.
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 And if any opposed, say no and raise your hand. Seeing none opposed, the motion carries. Okay. Next project. 5548 FY22 Forest Service North Zone watershed improvements with partners.
FY22 to the worst
FY
name project.
Yeah.
It's a long, terrible name anyway, but it's a great project. You can see on the map, this is around our hardware ranch up in Cache County, and working with Forest Service on this, and the private landowner, the Coldwater Ranch, which borders our south boundary of our hardware ranch. And then if you see the land ownership there, it covers 3 land ownerships. It's a project we've been working up in this area for a number of years, working with Lop and Scatter, just chunking away at it. Coldwater Ranch, and there's some good areas on that. This is high elevation transitional range and summer range, but also right around hardware, there's a lot of wintering elk. Coldwater Ranch winters a lot of elk for us there as well. So this includes lop and scatter work. There's 1,400 acres of lop and scatter of some phase 1 juniper along the Anton Flat Road, 1,300 acres on the Forest Service that'll be masticated, and 311 acres on the hardware ranch that'll have some mastication. Also, this includes some weed control on some weedy areas in that yellow polygon. You can see there's some weed control going on, and then down south or down on the Coldwater Ranch as well. There's also road work that needs to be done as part of this bigger project in Curtis Creek, down just to the right there. Some road work for future projects that are being planned and proposed for next year. That road, we don't have intention of making that a public road. It's just the road needs a little bit of work to get equipment up there. It actually is behind a locked gate, and public's not allowed to drive on that, but it needs some work. There's some rocks came down, and so that's part of this project as well. Great project in a very critical area. Try to restore aspen and promote browse in both winter range and transitional range, as well as summer range up on those higher areas. Yep, there's pictures of lop and scatter areas that'll be cut. And some of the mastication areas. That's it.
All right, thanks, Scott. Yeah, let's look at this funding really quick on this one. So a big project with kind of a smaller ask from Habitat Council. Any questions?
Just Darren, I've got one question. Is that the road that's proposed to be kind of fixed? Is that the gate you mentioned? Is that seasonally closed or is that permanently closed?
It's permanently closed. People go in there. It's well used. It's a well used access, but it is permanently closed.
Okay, thank you.
Once improvements are made, are you looking to open that then? Is that plan?
Yeah, it's a discussion we'll have to have with Brad Hunt. At this point, I don't know that we are. We're just trying to get that area opened or available for the equipment to get up there to do the work.
Okay, do we have a motion on this one?
I'll move to tentatively approve the project for funding.
Thank you, Jack. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion from Jack, a second from Tyler. All in favor, say aye.
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 Or any opposed, say no and raise your hand. All right, none are opposed. Motion carries. All right. Next one, 5756 East Bear Lake Range Improvements, Phase 1.
Okay, these are, this is up just on the east shore of Bear Lake, or up on the hills above by Bear Lake. This one's one I'm particularly interested in. When I first started with the state a long time ago, I went on a tour with the then biologist, Steve Curl. I don't know if any of you knew Steve. Probably one of the best range biologists we had. He was a wildlife biologist, but he was a good range guy. And this is an area that he looked at then, especially, and he felt like this was especially critical for the deer on the cache. This bench right here, that slope that on the east side of Bear Lake, and the deer that winter there are incredible, in incredible numbers then, and they still do. It was difficult then. It's a difficult terrain. It's very steep. It's on Sitla property. So I don't know if Ethan's still on, but hopefully he could chime in if he wants. But this is an area then we just didn't have the techniques to do that. There were no massive lop and scatter crews. We couldn't get equipment up there. But this is coming. Nate's been taking a second hard look at this, and I think we're going to be doing some lop and scatter work up here to try to get ahead of that juniper that's been encroaching over the last century. And it's just a great project, very important mule deer project to try to get ahead of that expanding juniper on that hillside.
Oh, it does look great. Any questions on this?
Scott, do you see Sitla eventually selling some of this property, especially the stuff down lower?
Maybe they're certainly in it for the money. The stuff that's right along the lake, and especially as you go north, it's flat, it's developable. Most of the stuff that's actually being treated is pretty steep. I don't know. I never thought they'd build houses above Bountiful as high as they did either. So, but they tend to be able to build pretty steep on steep slopes. But I don't know. It's Sitla. Is what it is. But in the next 10, 15, 20 years, I think this project would pay dividends to our big game before it gets developed. Hopefully it doesn't get developed, but maybe we can work a trade. I don't know.
Just planting seeds here, right?
Just planting seeds.
Okay.
I'll just mention too that we typically approach Sitla every year to have them help us fund projects like this that are in sage grouse areas. And so we'll include this project as part of that request this year.
Great.
Hey, this is Ethan. This piece isn't under our development group watch, so I don't think there's any potential to develop any of this anytime soon. Some of that stuff right off the highway closer to the lake, there's a little bit of potential there, but most of that's pretty steep as well. So I don't see any plans in the future to develop this area.
It's good to hear. Any other questions on this one? All right.
The motion to approve it.
Okay, motion from Tyler.
This is Darren. I'll second.
Thank you, Darren. A second from Darren. All in favor, say aye.
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 Are there any opposed? Say no and raise your hand. All right, motion carries. Thank you. Thanks, Scott. There was one other Northern Region project on the agenda, but that's fully funded. So I think you're done.
All right. Well, thank you. And thank you all for all the help and support on these projects.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to move on the other page of the agenda for Southern Region projects. I know Gary had jumped on, and we'll start with 5637 Zion Migration Corridor Habitat Improvement Phase 2. Gary, is that you? Dan.
Actually, me for the next two.
Great.
So this project is on the North Fork of the Virgin River. It's kind of a continuation of the Hogs Heaven project that we did last year. We just completed that last week. So working with another private landowner, important habitat for mule deer in the migration corridor. If you go to some of the pictures, you can see heat map that's been created of the migration, and you'll see that it falls directly in there. So using some of the wildlife tracker data, I ran just a query of April of 19 through September of 19, and there's 13 deer that summered there, and of that 20 and there's 2,700 points approximately. And then in April of 20 through September of 20, there's 11 deer that used it with over 3,400 points. So they're irrigated meadows, and it's obvious that they're using this for fawning habitat. So here is a situation where we are growing part of our Zion deer herd on the backs of private landowners. This is an active cattle operation. You can go through some more of the pictures, Daniel, so they can see it. Proposing to do some bull hog and seed, clean up those sides, some of the areas we can get up on top of those canyon walls, and then remove a bunch of old net wire fence. It used to be a sheep operation historically, and then replace it with the division fence design with the top rail being a lodge pole. So a much more wildlife friendly fence. U.S. Fish and Wildlife has already committed $200,000 that we've received for this. Important area for the mule deer and elk on the Zion unit. Even though there's a lot of private in the area, this still supports a lot of public hunting, and especially for the locals. So this is a picture of Hog 7, part of it that's been completed. We're really happy with the results and just punching holes in that mess of PJ. So lots of turkeys. Some of the deer that we caught on the migration. That was a buck that was shot in the area a couple of years ago. There's a buck that was just there. Same with a bull that was caught on camera there. So. So I think we were asking 50,000.
Hey, Stan, this is Daniel Olson. How much of the mesh wire are you guys removing?
So we're removing all the mesh wire fences, and that's about 2,300 or 23,000 feet. And then in order to make better pasture fences for them, we're going to be installing about 28,000 feet of the division fence with the top rail and then 3 strands of barb.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions on this project?
This is Darren. No question, but a comment. Anytime that you can overlay the Utah Migration Initiative data, that makes our job pretty easy. So just thanks to everybody involved in that. And it helps so much to see the data of what these deer are doing and elk and other stuff. So I just want to thank you on that.
Yeah, I was gonna basically say the same thing. It's nice to see that migration data used and for you guys to show your work there. So kudos to you guys on this project and others where you've used that data.
Oh, I have to give the credit to Daniel and his team making it so easy for us to use. So anyways, it is a really exciting project.
Hey, Stan, one quick question. Has the landowner or any of your staff observed fawns not being able to get across that mesh wire fence? Are they getting stuck on it?
So most of the net wire fence is pretty dilapidated, where it's non-usable fence. So no, we're not seeing any fawns being caught in the fence, but it definitely poses a hazard just being in and about and kind of the random strung out way that it is. So, but in one of those pictures, it kind of shows, I mean, some areas, most of it is there, but then some of the wetter areas, it's gone and probably packed in the mud. So it's Yeah, I think that picture might show some, or the picture before. But anyways,
Got it. That makes sense. Thanks, Dan.
you're welcome.
All right, any other questions? If not, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve this for funding consideration.
Thank
I
you,
second
Darren.
that.
All right, we have a motion from Darren and a second from Daniel. All in favor, say aye.
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 If there are any opposed, say no and raise your hand. Okay, there aren't any no's, so the motion carries. Thanks, that was a great project. And Stan,
Thanks.
you have the next one, 5638 Greater Fremont
Yep.
Plateau Habitat Restoration Phase 4. Go.
So this project is a continuation of the Greater Fremont series. In total, this is the 4th project. We're now moving into the south end of Bear Valley, which will now make Bear Valley complete. An exciting thing about this project, there's over 5,000 acres of cultural resources on the forest ground in that critical transition area, especially the early aspen sagebrush areas. So the forest is working really hard on getting their NEPA done, and we're hopeful that once we get the cultural done, they'll be able to rock and roll. So the BLM portions and the private and the state is already to be treated as of right now. So I'm kind of a wildlife tracker nerd. You might hate it or you might love it. But anyways, I ran a query on this one, and in 19 there was no data, but in 20, so from April of 20 to December of 20, because some of this is winter range, there's 11 deer with over 20,000 points that use this area. So again, 3 different private landowners, everything from water developments to stream exclosures, adding some woody vegetation, fencing it, rabbit brush mowing, lop and scatter, bull hog, harrow, culture resources, pretty much whole slew of things. We're going to fence some of these springs off to protect them from overuse from the livestock. This is a crucial sage grouse area too. There's several leks in Bear Valley. Another thing interesting about those points, when I pulled them up, the bull hog that we did 2 years ago, and I think it would have been Greater Fremont 2, there was actually the majority of those points were there. So there is one beaver. I like to tell this story. This beaver, he is actually using pinyon and juniper for most of his dam. So we could get some of his genes and clone them and start using pinyon juniper, or getting pinyon juniper eating beaver. That would be fantastic, and they can help us out, and we can lay off the bull hogs. So anyways, I think that pretty much sums it up. Sports fisheries, there's brown trout in Bear Creek, and then there's also several other native fishes. So we work closely with the fisheries guys, especially from the Forest Service. They're driving a lot of the stuff on the forest ground. But that pretty much sums it up.
All right, thanks, Stan. Let's check the budget page here. So another really big project, expensive, small amount for Habitat Council. Lots of species benefit. Any questions for Stan on this one? All right, seeing none, do we have a motion on this project?
I'll move that we tentatively approve it for funding.
Thanks, Jack. Do we have a second?
I'll second. This is Paul.
Thank you, Paul. Okay, we have a motion from Jack and a second from Paul. All in favor, say aye.
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 If there are any opposed, say no and raise your hand. Okay, seeing none, the motion carries. All right, thanks, Stan. Our next project is 5447 Monroe Mountain Aspen Ecosystems Restoration Project, Phase 6. Is that you, Kendall?
Yes, sir.
All
Good
right.
morning, everybody. I'll be presenting this project on behalf of Kelly Cornwall with Ridgefield Forest Service District. So this is Phase 6 of the Monroe Mountain Aspen Ecosystems. With this project, this year, Kelly's looking to treat between 4,300 and 6,200 acres in fiscal year 22. Roughly around 500 acres of aspen to be treated, 26 acres of hand thinning and chipping associated with some private lands in conjunction with forestry, fire, and state lands. 291 acres of beetle kill spruce, which would include thinning and traditional timber sale. Prescribed burning of existing piles that have been treated within the last 5 phases. That would be roughly around 35 to 5,400 acres. And seeding of around 500 acres. And they'd also like to construct roughly around 1,400 feet, or 2.8 miles of aspen exclusion fencing for ungulates, so they can give that opportunity for chance for that aspen that they're going to be treating here in the future to continue to develop and go. Some additional information. They'll be working on the north 1/3 portion of this project. Majority of the project has been treated on the south end of the Monroe Mountain, so they're starting to work to the north. The plan is estimated to treat an additional 35,000 acres in future phases of this project. So Kelly's done a great job. It's been a large scale project moving forward, and we've done majority of the contracting for them up on the Monroe Mountain. We've seen a lot of great results in the aspen up on top. So a great project. Like I said, it's through our regional ranking. It was the number 6 deer project in the southern region, the number 1 elk project, number 9 turkey project. A lot of these projects that are getting put on the ground by Kelly and the Fish Lake Forest Service address obviously our low deer populations and some of the winter range factors that work within our deer populations on the Monroe. So our budget is about $713,000 with $458,000 coming through in kind towards this project from the Forest Service and other funding opportunities. This project did receive $59,000 from ECP last week, so we're off to a good start with this one. Any questions?
Kendall, this is Tyler. Question for you, and maybe even Stan can help answer this. I know the NRCS has tried to increase their use of farm bill funds in forestry related projects. I'm wondering if you guys have explored the use of some of that farm bill funding, not only on the private lands, but for the Forest Service located permittees as well.
So this project received, I think it's the first 3 years, and then I think they re-upped again, but they've got NRCS Joint Chief of Staff monies tied to this project, and they have probably since we started with it. So they've actually were approved for the second round of that money, and it's a big chunk that comes from the NRCS Joint Chief of Staff. So they are using NRCS monies towards here.
All right. Any other questions for Kendall?
I've got one. Kendall, this is Daniel Olson. Do you recall what the design of the exclusionary fencing is? If you don't know, that's fine.
You know, in the past, Daniel, it's been the 8-foot fence. So they've overlaid it, like a 47-inch net with probably a 36 or a 32 on top. They've tore some of the net wire fence down. We've had several contracts in the past, so we removed a lot of that fence. We've stored the steel T-post to be reused. Some of the fencing, obviously, over the course of time, just isn't very good. So they'd like to try to reuse some of that stuff, but then build additional fences. But that's pretty close to what they're trying to achieve is is about an 8-foot tall fence with steel T-posts, wooden braces, and it just helps keeps the livestock out as well as the wildlife to allow those plants and the young aspen to get some growth on it.
Got it. Thanks, Kendall.
Uh-huh.
All right, do we have a motion on this project?
I'll make a motion to approve it for tentative funding.
Thanks, Darren.
Second that.
All right, we have a motion from Darren and a second from Daniel. All in favor, say aye.
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 Thanks, guys.
Any opposed, say no and raise your hand. All right, seeing none, motion carries. Thanks, Kendall. Next project, 5449 Gooseberry East Phase 2.
This will be another project I'll present on behalf of Kelly Cornwall and the Fish Lake Forest Service. Gooseberry East Phase 2. With this project, they'll be doing a lot of mechanical treatment, and within the Phase 1 project that they've completed this last year, they did a lot of the NEPA survey work. So I think we were around 24,000 acres on the first phase. This Phase 2 is the implementation phase. So it's where we're going to get pretty serious about doing a lot of different things that the Forest Service would like to do. Lop and scatter about 4,300 acres. They're going to bull hog 483 acres. They'll two-way chain over 1,800 acres within this Gooseberry East project. This project will improve wildlife and fish habitat, including big game transition and winter range, utilizing a mixture of mechanical methods. Within the mountain brush and sagebrush communities, areas will be reseeded. This is a multi-phase project that will be implemented over the next 2 to 4 years. The project is located in a series of units in the Gooseberry Salina Creek area, just east of the community of Salina and adjacent to Interstate I-70. Proposed is to treat both on private and Forest Service land that would complement the Bar J private property where some of the restoration work has already been completed in the past. So though there's about 2,300 acres of this project as primary of Phase 2, transitioning into a Phase 3 PJ, with 4,300 acres of this project into Phase 1. So these are some of the areas that they're trying to take a chunk at, kind of some of the low-hanging PJ as far as lop and scatter, and then they'll transition into more of the dense with lacking understory for the bullhog and the chain. But just overall a great project. Regional ranking on this one was number 22 for deer, number 6 for elk, number 11 for turkey. And it definitely benefits the winter range issues with our low deer populations and the impacts we have on drought in some of this area. So it's a good area for the Forest Service. You're going to see them start to work in this area on the north end of the Fish Lake mountain range, and also on the kind of the south end of the Central Mountains over the course of the next 4 or 5 years for sure. And Kelly's got projects that's tied to Salina Creek that's coming out of the southeastern region. So these projects will mesh together and work well. Last week we received $17,000 from ECP towards this project to continue to bolster the need to get it funded for implementation this year. Any questions?
I don't have any questions, Kendall, but I just want to thank you for continually building the relationship with the Forest Service that you have to get these chaining projects done. They're huge. I just want to thank you for all your hard work you put into that. That's all I've got.
Thanks, Darren.
Any other questions?
Come drive a dozer.
Send me a date.
We'll have to put a helmet on you. OSHA approved.
Just a quick question for me. Curious about the fishery benefit here, and is there a stream or a water that's directly within the project area? I couldn't find one. Just curious about the rainbow trout benefit.
Yeah, I
Vaudeville
think
cutthroat benefit.
Yeah, and I'm not up to speed on some of that stuff. I know Jen Swenson that works out of our Richfield office here. He's really good at trying to get some things done and has a lot of input on these type of projects. So I'd probably have to rely on Jen to follow through with this. But there is a creek that comes out of there, some intermittent streams that probably have some type of fish benefit to it, as well as when they're treating it. These guys are pretty thorough. They've been that way on the Monroe Mountain. We've done some fencing and some boreal toad stuff with Jen. So I know Jen's pretty involved with a lot of the stuff that goes on from the action that the forest has taken. So.
Any other questions on this? Looks like Nicole made a comment. She's worked with Jordan on the southeast region side of that project and done some work in the stream. So
yeah, I just to kind of clarify that. Yeah, I chatted with Jordan. So like Kendall mentioned, there's going to be a part that comes from the southeast region on that Salina Creek, and I chatted with Jordan a little bit. And when he worked for the division, he did some of the shocking on that. And there's definitely Bonnevilles in there, and he seemed kind of supportive of it. So I think it does have a really good riparian benefit.
Thanks, Nicole.
Thanks.
all right, do we have a motion on this?
I'll make the motion to approve it for tentative funding.
I'll second the motion.
All right, thank you. We have a motion from Darren and we have a second from Jack. All in favor, say aye.
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 Is there any opposed? Say no and raise your hand. Okay, seeing none,
thank you.
motion carries.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kendall. Next project, 5187 Mud Springs, Phase 3, Powell Ranger District. Is that you, Curtis?
That's me. Hi,
All right.
guys. Curtis Roundy here. I'll be presenting this project on behalf of Jake Shoppy and the Dixie National Forest Powell Ranger District. So this project is on the Mount Dutton unit for elk and deer and is in an area that is critical for sage grouse as well as prairie dog communities in the area. And Jake Shoppy has been working through this Mud Springs NEPA coverage area in the past 3-4 years now to try to pick the low-hanging fruit. This is kind of the last area of the really low-hanging fruit where there's a lot of lop and scatter opportunity, as well as some critical mastication areas in encroaching areas where the prairie dog colonies are at and living currently, and just trying to do some more good work for wildlife in this area. So it's 2,000 acres, about 1,900 acres of lop and scatter work, and about 250 acres of mastication. If you're looking at these pictures, you're seeing that it's pretty open areas in some of the areas, and then it starts to get really thick in other areas. And we're really just looking to open it back up for the sage grouse and prairie dogs in the valley floor. Pronghorn antelope use that country as well. And then as it gets to where the trees are starting to get a little thicker, then we're creating some edge with the mastication tool to benefit for mule deer, elk, and pronghorn. So this area is higher elevation and still does have a fairly intact understory. So no seeding is necessary in this phase of the project. We're just going to lop and scatter and masticate in areas where the understory looks like it'll recover with a little bit of help. And so that's pretty much what this project is. Remove some trees through lop and scatter and mastication. Looks like we're asking for $10,000 worth of help from you guys today. So with that, I'll take any questions. looks like there might be some non-game benefit there that's not listed on your breakout if you're looking at like the prairie dog component of this project.
Curtis, this is Tyler. I'm wondering if the lop and scatter portion of this could be fast tracked to this year.
Yeah, I think it could be. If that's the route that we decide to go, we'd probably need to get on it really quickly. But yes, I think it could be.
Will you guys make sure you add that to the fast track request sheet then?
Yep, I'll add it right now today.
Thank you.
Any other questions on this? All right, we have a motion.
I'll make the motion to approve it for funding consideration.
Okay.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion from Tyler. We have a second from Darren. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed, say no and raise your hand. Okay, seeing none, the motion carries. And Tyler, I appreciate the idea of fast tracking this one if we can. That would be great, Curtis. Next project, 5533 Government Creek Improvement Phase 2. Go ahead.
Howdy, this is Jim Lamb from Loa. I'm presenting this for Devin Johnson, works for the Forest Service. He's the wildlife biologist here in the Fremont River Ranger District. It's a 2,200 acre treatment. If you'll go to map this project, please, Daniel. It follows up on phase 1 of Government Creek, which was 1,100 acres of lop and scatter and 1,300 acres of mastication. We've got values there for Utah prairie dogs, greater sage grouse, and then we jump into the big game values. The wildlife board meeting last week, there were several presentations highlighting the shortcomings of the habitat on the Boulder Mountain, especially for deer. So this project directly benefits this area of the Boulder for deer. And if we could borrow about 10,000 acres of understory from the cache, I was looking at those pictures Scott Walker had, holy cow. Bring some of that down, we'll be in better shape. So we're going to treat in this phase 2,100 acres of mountain brush with contracted mastication equipment. On that map, this project tab, if you'll step to that riparian portion. So we consulted with Richard Hepworth, Jim Whelan, and Jen Swenson's about what to do with this section of Pine Creek that runs through this project area. We plan to put sawyers in 167 acres of that riparian section. They will lop and scatter all the pinyon and juniper there along the stream, and they will also drop or drag up to 4 juniper into the stream every 100 feet that provides some woody debris to the stream habitat. What we're trying to do is mimic the action of cottonwoods that would have been there historically but are no longer present. If you can go to some photographs, those images, let's jump down to the ones at Pine Creek. It's about third or fourth picture in the, there you go. PJ Succession near Pine Creek. Those 2 pictures right there, Daniel. Yep, that one. So this is what Pine Creek currently looks like. It's really been encroached by pinyon juniper. And the next picture shows what we hope to restore. You can see there we've got some alder and birch. We've got some aspen in the background, ponderosa pine all along this stream. We just like to knock that pinyon juniper out and put some of it in the stream. What we're hoping to do is improve pool habitats, catch sediment, bring the water table up, and provide some benefit to this conservation population of Colorado River cutthroat trout that are in Pine Creek. They are a regionally sensitive species for the Dixie National Forest. In recent conversations with Sitla, we hope that we could add about 85 acres of that Sitla piece. If you jump back to map this project, there's a little section there on the riparian treatment. You can see where it leaves the Forest Service property and it jumps through that Sitla corner right there. We'd like to pick up about that 1.5 miles of stream, and if we can come up with another $7,200, we'd like to include that in the lop and scatter portion of that Pine Creek treatment. Back to our images, if it's kind of sad when we look at the deer collar data down at the bottom, that very last image, So Sam Lake Hollow, right there in the middle of your image, that's the area where this treatment is going to take place, and a little bit south of it, there, at the bottom end of Giles Hollow. You can see we have a little bit of deer use there along Pine Creek. We'd really like to get some deer use up there in Sam Lake Hollow. Now, this is only 2 weeks worth of locations, the last 2 weeks. It's the time of year when the deer should be moving into this area, and they just need a little bit of help to that habitat to create a little more food so that they could be able to utilize that. We do have some seed already obtained that we can put in the ground, bitter brush and four wing in front of that mastication equipment, and see if we can get a jump start on some of those brush species. A couple of those other images, Daniel, that first one is just in the foreground's an old fire, just a little bit east of this project area. The bitter brush under here's come back if we can just open it up. And so we've got just a couple of images there showing how that PJ is encroached off of these ridges, and what we'd like to do is just clean off all that stuff in the foreground, let it go back to sagebrush and mountain brush. That's about all I've got, unless you have some questions.
Just a comment from me. I like the idea of adding woody debris into the Pine Creek. I think that's a great idea, and yeah, I'd love to see how that results in the next few years.
Thanks, Paul. That's due to be surveyed again it was just surveyed in 2020, so it's due to be surveyed again about 2025. Hopefully we can get those things in there, and then that survey can help us understand what it did.
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions for Jim on this? Okay. Seeing none, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to tentatively approve this project for funding consideration.
Thanks, Paul. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Darren, a motion from Paul, a second from Darren. All in favor, say aye.
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 If there are any opposed, say no and raise your hand. Okay. Seeing none, the motion carries.
Thanks,
All right.
everyone.
Thanks, Jim. Next project, 5219 South Beaver and Little Dog Valley Watershed Improvement Phase 1. Go ahead.
So this is Kendall, and I'll be presenting this project on behalf of the Forest Service out of Beaver. And it's a project they asked me to help them with this year. So this is about the third time this project's been presented, and I think we've got enough in our favor that, it's a possibility that it'll get funded this year. But we're looking to treat through lop and scatter methods, 2,500 acres. Definitely improve mule deer, elk, sage grouse, Bonneville cutthroat trout, domestic livestock, and wild turkey by doing this project. As you look on the map, you can almost see kind of a straight line in the past that a lot of WRI funding and Habitat Council funding has come through to help the BLM, and we've come up against the fence line there, and we just need to continue this project across the fence line onto the Forest Service. So that's kind of the need, working with Steve Flinders, Corey Norman out of the Beaver Ranger District office. But it's a great project. Some of the partners are DWR, Grazing Improvement, Permittees, and the Forest Service. And we have some livestock fencing along Birch Creek that they'd like to do to help with Bonneville cutthroat trout. So they'd like to remove some of the cattle from being on those riparian areas by building a fence. Obviously, the fence will have openings in it where the cattle can come in and get some water out of Birch Creek and then continue on. But we've asked for about $43,000 from Grazing Improvement through their watershed or their water development funds. 47,520. So working with Randy Marshall on this one, but overall it's a good project. Definitely will help some of the mule deer that are struggling in this area with low buck to doe ratios, plus low fawn recruitment and poor body conditions. The regional rank on this project was number 8 for elk, number 13 for turkey, and we did receive $30,000 through ECP funding last week towards this project. So Pretty much just a nice big lop and scatter project. We figure we can get it done for about $155 an acre and continue the work across the fence from the BLM. Any questions?
Did you say 155 an acre for lop and scatter?
Yeah, there's some pretty good sized trees. But with the NEPA situation that they have, they can't do anything mechanical. So we kind of based it on what we did for Ranch Creek on the first phase of Ranch Creek, which is a little bit more expensive due to the diameter DBH of these trees. So they're going to get in some areas that they're going to probably struggle with, but ultimately I think that's how Steve Flinders looked at it, along with what we did and the bids that kind of come up out of Ranch Creek. So
Same comment I had for Curtis then on this one and fast tracking it. Just wondering if that's a possibility.
yeah, I think it's a possibility. It's a lot of acres to try to get done, but I can definitely put it on the list. I've put a couple on there already, so we can definitely do it, or we might be able to break it down into sections or phases as well.
I mean, even if you guys put them out there and had them cross a fiscal year, having us pay out a good portion of it before July 1st would be helpful.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions? Okay. Do we have a motion on this one?
I'll make the motion to approve this for tentative funding.
Thanks, Darren. Do we have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Okay. Second from Jack. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no and raise your hand. All right. Seeing none, the motion carries. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next project, 5669, Long Mountain Wildlife Habitat and Watershed Enhancement Phase 1. Go ahead.
So this is Stan again. So this project is just west of Milford. It's this area that we worked in the past. We did two sections of southeast on the Beaver Iron County line 2 years ago with the same producer. So what we're proposing here is to kind of copy what we did with them. We chained two sections originally, and then we fenced them, and then we put sage grouse markers or wildlife markers on the fence. So this area is heavily used by elk on the Southwest Desert Unit. In those sections that we did a little bit southeast of these, we saw pretty much any time during the day you can go in there and there's elk in those sections. Interestingly enough, over the last 2 years that we've had those fences up and marked, we've had zero elk damage from the elk crossing the fence. And the producer checks it at least 2 times a year. So anyways, what we're planning on doing here is we're gonna chain 2,600 acres, seed, and then that one section we're planning on fencing it and then marking it, of course. So we use regular range fence, 4 strands of barb, 42 inches high, and then we mark it in an effort to reduce the horses. That was the main driving factor, is keep the horses off while it recovers. If you can go through the pictures. So this is kind of what it looks like right now. Typical phase 3, phase 2, pinyon juniper. This is what those sections look like the first year after. The diversity was phenomenal. They still look great even after 2 years of drought. This is the first year they were able to go back on this winter. And so anyways, I did run some collar data on this one too. And just to point out how much those 2 sections that we've already done get used, there were 6 elk and 1,100 points. And those elk are using them, like I say, daily. So we anticipate the same thing. This also borders a bunch of lop and scatter we did last year with the BLM. They jumped on board kind of the last minute, and we were glad they did. So any questions, let me know.
Any questions?
I guess one thing I failed to point out, this producer is bringing his whole entire farm bill to this project. So they also brought a good portion of their previous farm bill to the last project. So they're good producers. They're working hard to do good things in partnership with multiple agencies.
Thanks, Dan. Appreciate your efforts on working on building those partnerships. Any other questions? If not, do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Go ahead, Tyler.
Okay, we have a motion from Tyler
I'll second that.
and a second from Darren. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed, say no and raise your hand. Okay, don't see any no's, so motion carries. All right, next project, and we're going to finish out the Southern Region projects before we take a break. I'll try to do that. I don't know, maybe not. Anyway, 5448 Glenwood Collaborative Project Phase 1. Go ahead.
So this is another project put together by Kelly Cornwall, and it's the Glenwood Collaborative Project Phase 1. So this project is kind of a continuation from where the Willow Patch Fire ended, and kind of works its way around kind of the north end of the Monroe and ends up over just above Annabelle. The opportunity is to work with the BLM, the Forest Service, and private landowner to treat some lop and scatter of young trees, 1,410 acres. Like to bullhog 1,561 acres, which would include aerial seeding for the bullhog. The BLM would like to try some green stripping in this area or in this project as well, to try to control and target some cheatgrass suppression. So the need of this project is to improve wildlife habitat, including the big game transition and winter range, improve our vegetative understory, providing forage to minimize erosion, protect structures at risk, reduce wildfire risk to the public and firefighters as they fight some of these fires, similar to what we've encountered with the Willow Patch and the Sand Ledges fire in the past. Look to treat and within the communities of Glenwood and Annabelle. Winter range is pretty critical. We watched a lot of these areas just kind of gradually decline over the last several years. So we definitely benefit the winter range factors for mule deer, and within providing additional opportunities to increase our low deer populations. This project ranked number 4 deer and number 4 elk in the southern region. Feel like we can treat all together with the lop and scatter, the bullhog, and some of the green stripping roughly for around $280 an acre. Last week, we were able to receive a little over $30,000 through ECP towards this project. So it's another great project that involves BLM, state trust lands, forestry fire state lands, the Forest Service, DWR, just a great cooperative effort to do some more great work on the north end of the Monroe Mountain. Any questions?
Just a comment, Kendall. I just want
Yes,
to
sir.
commend you on this one. You don't see a lot of Forest Service and BLM collaboratives, so good job getting those guys to talk together and combine their efforts.
Yeah, these guys with Kelly and Cody Pollock and Bob Bate and Brant Hallows, it's been a great effort with those guys. So it's good to have them all on board for sure.
So also looks like lots of different flavors of money on this, so that's really good.
Yeah, I think we're looking, it's pretty hefty price tag, but we've got a lot of in-kind coming, and as far as some of the work that we can get done, I think they can do a fair amount in-house through the in-kind, but it should be a great project. It's just going to open up a lot a lot of additional acres that ties into a lot of the work that's already been done on the Willow Patch Fire and associated with that, and Cedar Mountain Durfee with some of the bullhog work that just finished up.
Great. Any other questions on this? Okay, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve it for tentative funding.
Thanks, Darren.
Second that.
All right, we have a motion from Darren and a second from Daniel. All in favor, say aye.
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 I don't know, Tyler, if this is another one you want to put on that fast track list. I know we got a little bit of lop and scatter, like 1,400 acres. I mean, I can definitely throw everything at it and see where we go, but it's entirely up to you what your thoughts are.
My thoughts are to put everything you possibly can on the fast track list.
I got to have something to do. Can't get it all done in one month, right?
Oh, I'm sure you'll be just fine. It's going to be a busy fire season, Kendall.
That's true. I'm just finishing up my rehab from last year.
Hey, that means you can start right ahead, right into the next stuff.
I'm taking a break.
Okay, I need to ask, were there any no's on this project to the motion? Okay, seeing none, the motion carries. Okay, no, that's a great project. Next project, 5331 White Sage Flat Habitat Restoration Project, Phase 1. Go ahead.
Yeah, this project is one in cooperation with the Fillmore Forest Service and the CWMU, which is Pavon Ensign Ranch. And the project is located on kind of south of Kanosh area. You can see it on a map. Daniel, if you want to go to images or documents, let's go to documents. Down at the very end, there's a map. And that'll kind of be able to open it up a little bit. But this is the second year we've proposed this project. Last year we just didn't get the funding we needed to pull it off. But it's a great cooperative effort with a private landowner there. You can kind of see a lot of the different treatment areas. But we're looking to Ely chain around 1,428 acres. This will all be done in kind through the private landowner. We'll provide an Ely chain. They'll provide the 2 dozers and the labor, the fuel to get it done. We'll provide the contract to do the cultural resource surveys in this area. Lop and scatter, looking to do about 3,200 acres, and it'll all be done on the Forest Service. And then the Forest Service, through some in-kind work, they'll do a lot of the bobcat mastication. It'll be about 700 acres associated with this project. There'll be bullhogging on the forest, as well as picking up some acres on DWR ground. So it's just a great effort between a lot of different partners. The private landowner's already built the 5,200 feet of fence. He's done that in kind, which will help provide us the access of leaving it fallow for a couple years, so they don't have to worry about grazing. We can kind of control the grazing in that area. So this is just a great project. Like I said, it does involve some private within a CWMU, but the CWMU operators are all on board to try to help out, create additional mule deer habitat. The population is under objective for mule deer, and this project would address some of the winter habitat needs with poor body conditions resulting in some of our mule deer on that Kanosh Pavant mountain range. So this was a regional rank at number 12 for deer, number 13 for elk, number 2 for turkey. We've had some depredation issues here in the past. We think some of these treatments will definitely open up opportunities for turkeys to expand and maybe pull off some of those private landowners causing them some issues. ECP last week, we were able to get $18,000 towards this project. Just a great project that they're excited to get done, and it's going to be another phase project. We'll continue to work to the north of here towards the Meadow Creek Fire once we're done, but the Forest Service has been real aggressive through different stewardship projects. This is one that does not qualify for a stewardship, but they're really excited about trying to get this one taken care of. So any questions?
Kendall, on that Kanosh WMA that's ours there, didn't Sean Kelly do a PJ treatment back?
Yeah, he's done a little
12, 13 years ago.
Yeah, there's been that, and there's been some lop and scatter work. I think it was a chaining. We got some of those trees coming back in. I know I seen something the other day that dedicated hunter coordinator JC Ballard was trying to put together to try to put some dedicated hunters in there to just use up some time to do some lop and scatter work. This will all be a little bit north of there or south of there. But yeah, he did do that, but we're just starting to get some trees in there, and the Forest Service has jumped on board and says, hey, we'll put our machines, we'll put our guys, we'll put our labor and take care of some of your area as well to remove some of those younger trees and continue to improve the shrub component in that area. So they're definitely willing to help us out. But yeah, Sean did over the past.
This is Gary. Rhett and I helped Sean do that project, and there's a cool range trend site on it, and Danny's used it in several presentations talking about that project area. It's a good one, and the stuff that Kendall's doing to the south is retreating some of that, and then the stuff JC will do on the north end again just kind of catches some of that area. We're just seeing a little bit of regrowth, but definitely a great area to be doing this.
I'm just curious too, is this the first time we've seen the Forest Service use their employees and their equipment on our lands? That seems pretty unusual.
We did some work last year they did it on Sitla, what we called Cedar Hills and Little Long Canyon, and they finished all that up. So we've had them do some work on state lands, but yeah, with Bryce Monroe, Brian Monroe, Sean Kelly, Lance Sudwicks, those guys are great to work with out of that Fillmore office, and they're not opposed to helping us if we need it. So
that's awesome. I love that precedent.
Yeah, continuing to build these partnerships where they're expanding beyond their own borders like we've done for a lot of years. So, okay, any other questions? All right, do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, we have a motion from Tyler.
I'll second the motion.
We have a second from Jack. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed, say no and raise your hand. Okay, seeing none, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kendall. So we're at 10:34. Why don't we take a 5-minute break, 6-minute break, come back at 10:40, and we'll pick up from there. So tech team, we're taking a quick break till 10:40. Thanks, everyone. Okay. Thanks, Michael. And we're up and running again here. So we're going to move to our next project. We're at 10:41. We'll hopefully look to finish sometime after 12. So we'll look to push through as good as we can here. So 5631 Hamlin Valley Wash Sage Step Habitat Improvement. Go ahead. Stan, is that you? You're on mute.
Gotta love the mute button. So anyways, Hamlin Valley, this is an exciting project to see some work in Hamlin Valley. There's been a few other projects proposed. Daniel, can you turn on the adjacent projects? So as you can see, we're proposing these projects that will butt up against future projects. So these are on state sections and on some private ground. What we're focusing on is doing something to utilize these producers' farm bill money before it's too late and we've wasted a farm bill. Judging on how the litigation's going with the Hamlin Valley NEPA, these producers are ready to go and I'm ready to go. So we went ahead and put together something. What we're proposing here is basically using a chain to chain harrow some sagebrush and the lower stuff in that middle state section, a little bit on the private too. We'll seed it. And then as you continue further east, you get into pinyon juniper and we would chain that. So working with Scott Chamberlain from Sitla, we've come up with some tentative polygons. We're going to fine tune them once we get funding and so on. And then we're going to fence them and mark the fences. So it'll be regular range fence, 4 strands with the wildlife markers. And the section that's a loner down southeast, that was chained by Forestry, Fire, and State Land this year with some grant money they had, but currently there's no fence around it. So it's open for use. And working with the producer, he'd like to fence it to protect it and then make it so he doesn't have to worry about chasing his cows off for the next 2 years. We are planning to add, so on the private ground, about in that corner, there is a well, and we're planning to, through the NRCS and some WRI money, to boost the pump and then be able to pump to 2 more areas to make those sections more usable when he's able to go back on them. So this project, really important for the elk in the Southwest desert. It's funded through sage grouse. This picture I said in the ECP meeting that this is what I call phase 3 sagebrush. As you can see, there's no understory. We'd like to open some of that up and create some age class diversity. This is a picture on the private right by the well. It just gets pounded by the wild horses coming in. So that's why we're proposing to fence it and giving a fighting chance. This is as you start to transition from the sagebrush into the juniper. We're hoping to make these areas more productive. So big sage grouse area. This is close to one of the, I believe it's the Hamlin Valley Lek, one of the many leks in Hamlin Valley. Anyways, this producer, this will be their second time they brought the majority of their farm bill to projects. The Spanish George project further south, they brought all 450,000 to it. This one, just the way that our funding works out, they're bringing the $389. Like I said, that funding is it's ready for obligation now. So, any questions?
Stan, does the NRCS money help pay for the fence?
So unfortunately, when we build boundary fences, we can't use NRCS money. That's why we're asking 100% of the funding for the fence through WRI and the other funding sources. If it was
So
an
without-
internal fence, it would be different.
Without the fence, is this project pretty much not worth doing?
I'd be hesitant to, just because of what would happen to it. I feel it would just get annihilated, and so I'd feel better if it was fenced. But if there are certain sections that we couldn't fence, or we need to cut back the fence, we could consider it like maybe only fencing part of the private ground, because we're not treating the whole private ground. Another thing is maybe that section that Forestry, Fire, and State Land did, maybe we don't fence that, since that wasn't in the original plan. So
I would appreciate that. I got to be honest, I'm having a lot of heartburn with an $850,000 fence. Would you put together a minimal fence that still allows the project to move forward, and send that to us, and maybe we'll consider that?
Okay.
So are you proposing to change that for this version of the project, Tyler?
Yeah, I'll propose that. I mean, I really appreciate the landowners and the permittees bringing their farm bill funding, but this is by far the most expensive fence I've ever seen come through WRI.
Any other discussion on that or fencing in this project? Okay, so maybe we need to couch a motion with maybe how you would adjust that project, Tyler.
I'll make a motion to approve it for funding consideration, with the caveat that Stan brings back a minimal fencing funding option for us to consider.
Hey guys, this is Curtis. I don't know where maybe the numbers were coming from, but $10 a foot on that fence is for range fence is higher than what we've been getting. I've contracted out several different fences this last year, and I think they're more in the $4 to $6 on the high end. And so if that changes anything, I think it's definitely going to go for less than that at that amount if you bid it out.
Where I got those numbers from is the last project I fenced out there came in at over $9 a foot. So that's where I came up with that number. But definitely we'll look at the prices and also adjust the amounts.
Any additional discussion on this?
This is another one we'll take to SITLA in consideration for sage grouse funding.
Okay. So we have a motion with adjusting the fencing amount to a lower amount. Do we have a second on that one?
I'll second that, Eric.
Okay, we have a second from Daniel. So we have a motion from Tyler, a second from Daniel. All in favor, say aye.
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 If there are any opposed, say no and raise your hand. Okay, I don't see any no's, so the motion carries. And so we'll look at this and see where this goes with the fencing and see how much this can get funded. So, all right. Thanks, Stan. Next project, 5773 Indian Peaks WMA Mule Deer Habitat Improvement Project, Phase 3. Is it you, Curtis?
Hi. Yep, that's me. Hi guys, Curtis Roundy again. Presenting this for our Indian Peaks WMA out in the Southwest Desert. And like Stan has mentioned previously, we've anxiously been awaiting the BLM to come back on board with their NEPA, and it keeps getting litigated and stopped in court. So we're moving ahead with some of the projects that are in this project area that are on lands where we can work. And so this is one of those. It's on our WMA, and if you look at the treatment polygons, you've got 3 polygons that are planned for prescribed fire. 2 of those portions are setting solely on our WMA area. So the little teeny piece on the northwest corner, and then the piece that's highlighted on the south portion, are both areas that we're going to try to focus our prescribed fire efforts on this year. And we're extremely excited. The prescribed fire assignment has been changed to a different person to be responsible for writing the prescription and overseeing the lighting of the fire this year. So Christian from Lone Peak Hot Shots is the guy we're working with now, and he's got a lot of prescribed fire experience and seems more optimistic this time around that we're actually going to light a fire instead of just do the fallback work, which is what we've been doing for the last couple of years because we haven't been able to get the prescription written and find that right window to light the fire. So we're hopeful this year that fire is what we see instead of the fallback option. But the fallback option this year, we've done all of our lop and scatter in the previous 2 years worth of work. So with this phase, our fallback option is the mastication work, and it's about 775 acres of mastication. And I think the pictures tell the story of the prescribed fire and the mastication. So when you're looking at these pictures, you can see the understory in the mastication area, which is what you're looking at here, is completely gone in a lot of cases. There are sometimes bitter brush plant or some kind of a browse species hanging on by a thread, but it's starting to erode some of our riparian areas down to bedrock at points, and just really needs some help in this area. So that's why we put the project together. And in these areas along these riparian corridors, we would look to have trees left in the riparian channels to try and infill and bring the water table back up. But ultimately, our number one goal here is to light prescribed fire in the Southwest desert and show it as an effective tool. And as soon as we get the BLM on board, we would like to light what's in the picture now, Indian Peak itself. But based on the discussions on the ground with the fire personnel, lighting Indian Peak and keeping the fire on the WMA is not really that feasible. It makes a whole lot more sense to burn both sides of the peak, and it blends over into the BLM side on the back side, on the western side of that. So we're hopeful that we can light the stuff that's all inclusive on the WMA this year and set a trend here, and hopefully see more prescribed fire being used in the Southwest desert long term. And with that, I'll take any questions you guys have.
Curtis, this is Tyler. I got a couple questions. On your finance page, you mentioned a 500-acre lop and scatter, but I don't see that on the map. Is that part of the plan still?
It was secondary to the stuff that's on the WMA, and it was on the BLM and part of the private that was adjacent on the south end of the WMA. And with their NEPA not being part of what's going to be available this year, I don't think the 500 acres of lop and scatter is going to be part of what we're going to be able to do this year. It was originally going to be part of the plan, but without the NEPA, I don't think it's going to be an option.
Okay.
One thing I think maybe that would help us as far as funding, if you could go into this budget section and split it up a little bit more so it's easier for us to say, okay, this is the prescribed fire for those, this is the amount for the prescribed fire of the 2 that we would do if we burn. This is the amount for the bull hog, and then maybe even just get rid of the stuff that's not going to happen. I don't know.
Yeah, that was going to be my next suggestion is let's just take out let's just take out anything that's tied to the EA. So that big burn polygon and the costs associated with that. If that lop and scatter is tied to that EA, same thing. And then you talk about the bull hog as your fallback. But if we funded both, would you do both?
Yes, we would do both if both were funded.
Okay.
Ultimately, long term, the plan is to do all of these treatments on the WMA. And so if we were to fund both, we would absolutely do both. With prescribed fire, part of the plan going into this project is we know that prescribed fire seems to be hit and miss. And we didn't want to ask for a bunch of funding and have it tied up to a project. And then when we realize, hey, we can't actually pull off a prescribed fire portion that we're planning for, then we don't spend any of that money and just have to have it setting in queue waiting. And so we wanted to have fallback options as a way to continually do some work every year with the money that we're asking for. But I think this year, of all the years so far, it's really promising that we're actually going to light fire. And so if you were to fund both, I would say there's a pretty high probability that a mastication project and prescribed fire would happen this year if both were funded.
Curtis, if you'll just let me know when you've got the budget reworked, and then I can update what your ask is. That'd be great. Thanks.
Yep, absolutely, Allison. I'll work on it today and let you know when it's ready to go.
Daniel, can you show us the current Habitat Council amount? Okay, thanks.
Curtis, do you know if he's planning any aerial ignition or anything like that?
Yes.
Where we've got no grazing, everything else around this WMA is grazed, water within miles. Indian Creek continued to be like this, where everything around it is I mean, it's sad because there was no growth last year. So anyway, that's all I had to say. Thanks, Curtis,
Thanks, Kevin, for jumping in on that and discussion on this project. Okay, do we have a motion?
For funding consideration with the caveat that Curtis goes in and removes all of the burn portion and lop and scatter portion that's tied to the BLM's EA for Hamlet Valley.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion from Darren, a motion from Tyler, a second from Darren with an adjustment to lop and scatter. Curtis, is that something that you'll be able to accommodate?
Yes, I'll have that done before the end of the day today, and I'll let Allison know when it's ready to go.
Perfect. All in favor on this motion, say aye.
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 If there are any opposed, say no and raise your hand. Okay, seeing none of those, the motion carries. All right, thanks. Okay, last one for Southern Region, Devil's Canyon Water Enhancement Project. Go ahead.
So this is a project that was brought to me through Grazing Improvement and Tom Tippett's and the private landowner. So what we're trying to do is kind of coordinate a little bit and cost share the opportunity to do a water enhancement project. This project is east of Scipio, and it would include installing 1,510 feet of 2-inch HDPE pipe, installing 2 troughs, working on a solar pump, and having a 10,000 gallon water storage tank. So the benefits would be obviously to the BLM allotment, which is the Snags BLM allotment, and also Robbins Livestock. So it's kind of cooperative project, water development, definitely a benefit to mule deer, elk, and some turkeys within the Central Mountain unit there. We've done a lot of work in this area. As you can see the picture with the ripper, here's a tire trough that we'd probably look to install either one of these or one of the backwoods troughs. These are some permittees on the Pavant Mountain. This backwoods troughs is one that we installed couple, 3 years ago on our Nixon WMA, and then you can see kind of the overflow goes down into a little catch pond. But some of the equipment, some of the materials, once we're done, kind of what we'd like to see it look like. A permittee is going to have a 10,000 gallon storage tank. He's going to do a fair amount of the work. GIP, we're just going to kind of cost share with them on this project. But we've done some work in this area. We did chaining about 4 years ago, right behind here on the BLM. So we're getting a lot of benefit from what wildlife that are in that Central Mountains area, but water is just a limiting factor in this unit. And I feel like if we could do some improvements, we could definitely benefit the wildlife species that we have there. So obviously for domestic cattle and wildlife both will benefit, but a good project to get done, and an opportunity to work with the permittee and grazing improvement on this project. So the cost is about $14,800 that we're asking for Habitat Council. GIP's going to bring $11,600, and the producer's around $9,000. So pretty small project, but definitely will have a great benefit and a need for water in this area. Any questions?
Hey, Kendall, it's Darren. By adding that water, do you think it'll kind of keep those elk and deer from going down and crossing the road, or kind of hold them back off the road to try and reach those ag fields?
Yeah, those ag fields kind of take a little bit of hit, kind of on the edge of town. Sometimes those animals are going right down, kind of in the fall of the year, clearing into town. Not a big concern right now, at least on that side of the mountain. But definitely an opportunity to kind of a stopgap. Plus a lot of the chainings that we've done there in the past, so we've got some good regrowth in some of those areas. They don't get utilized a lot through livestock, very heavy. There's a lot of work that needs to be done as far as pinyon juniper in the future. This one's a little farther away than the one on Lone Cedar that was presented last week that the BLM is going to be doing some work on. But obviously an opportunity to create a stopgap to keep that wildlife from coming down into town for sure.
Thank you, Kendall.
All right, any additional questions on this one? Okay, do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion to approve it for tentative funding.
Thanks, Darren. Do we have a second?
Second that, Eric.
Okay, we have a second from Daniel. Everybody, all in favor, say aye.
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 If there are any opposed, say no and raise your hand. Okay, seeing no no's, the motion carries. All right.
Hey, thanks guys. I appreciate it.
Thanks everyone. Southern region had a good list there for us, so we appreciate that. Okay, we're gonna move on to Central Region projects. First one is 5551 Parley's Canyon Watershed Restoration Phase 2. Who we got for Central Region? Robbie, are you up?
Yeah, you got me.
All right.
All right. Thanks, everyone. So this project is a second phase of, we did work last year. We did a bunch of cultural clearances on the Forest Service, about 7,000 acres, and that's completed. And so now this phase of the project, we're ready to start doing work on the ground treatments, which is really exciting on the Forest Service. If you kind of zoom in there on the middle of those polygons, yeah. So the yellow that's highlighted right now is we're asking for more money to do additional surveys on Salt Lake City owned property. This is mostly oak brush thinning area to reduce the fire risk and improve wildlife habitat. And there's also some, we always get problems with moose on the highway there. And so kind of the thought is to pull back some of that cover near the highway to reduce them wanting to hang out in that area. And then you can see those little polygons on the Forest Service there in the green. That's the area that we, right there, we'll be doing some cut and pile on the Forest Service. And then along the highway, there's kind of a narrow strip we're going to be cutting and chipping. So that's Lambs Canyon right there. So protect the, there's a lot of cabins and things in that area, and protect that ingress and egress routes. At the mouth of the canyon, we'll be doing some myrtle spurge work. In this first phase, we're doing some this spring as well. We'll just continue to treat that. There's that little polygon there. We'll be doing some BDA work in it's Parley's Historic Nature Park. Trying to improve some fish habitat in there and amphibian habitat. And we'll also be doing a bunch of BDA work up higher in the canyon, in Toll Canyon, East Canyon, Kimball Creek, Swanner Preserve, as well as on our McLeod Creek WMA. So yeah, it's a multi-faceted project, lots of different treatment types. I'm just trying to treat the whole watershed and address all the different issues. Here's some photos of just the conifer encroachment. We're getting a new insect called balsam woolly adelgid. I think it came from like Washington, but it's just killing all of the fir. And so the Forest Service is really nervous about having a bunch of dead trees up there, so that we're trying to get ahead of that and cut down a lot of the fir. This is Lambs Canyon Creek, showing where we did some BDAs last year. We probably did about 100 in Lambs, East Canyon, and Toll Canyon. And this is Summit Park area. We'll also be working in that with them to remove on their natural areas, improving the habitat, reducing the conifer, increasing the aspen cover, as well as reducing threats to homes in those areas. So a lot of partners. It's a big project, expensive, about almost $1 million ask. We did, I'm pretty sure, got $312,000 from shared stewardship already, which will really focus on the parts of the project that are more fuels related. But yeah, we're asking for quite a bit. Looks like $30,000 from Habitat Council. Any questions? It's a really popular area for extended archery hunting and just the general archery season, as well as rifle, deer, and elk, as well as lots of moose in there, once in a lifetime moose, hunting opportunities, some upland game, forest grouse mostly, and definitely we're improving the fishing opportunities big time. We have Bonneville cutthroat trout in all of those streams. So, and turkeys, there's turkeys in there too.
Any other questions for Robbie on this project?
Hey, Robbie, this is Darren. Did state forestry and fire lands, did they kick in any money on this? It just, I had some discussions last week with some of the guys, and it seems like this is kind of a fire suppression or fire prevention project to reduce the fire to the communities there. And we were just caught up a little bit on how much it may affect the communities and not so much the wildlife. Is there you had any of the concerns like that?
Yeah, so with WRI, a big part of WRI is fire reduction, and so a lot of the money will be coming from WRI. And correct me if I'm wrong, Daniel and everyone, but I believe Forestry, Fire, and State Lands puts money into WRI every year for those kinds of, that part of those projects. So yeah,
the shared stewardship portion. The shared stewardship portion is both Forest Service and Forestry, Fire, State Lands funding.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, so that $312,000, Darren. yeah, the sportsman funds will be more focused to the wildlife portions of it. So.
Thanks, Robbie.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions on this? Tyler, maybe you can speak to, it said 648 from WRI. Where are 648,000? Where is that typically coming from? Which pot of money?
So that'll likely come from WRI's fund, which includes $2 million from Forestry, Fire, State Lands, Sovereign Lands Fund that we typically put towards more fuels-oriented projects. And then some just from the regular general fund portion of WRI. So we get $6 million total. And I think this was the #1 project out of the entire region. So
okay, that's good to know.
Yeah, I think it's #2.
Highly ranked. Lots of other funding sources. Okay, any other questions? Okay, if there isn't any, do we have a motion on this project?
I will make the motion to approve it.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion from Tyler. We have a second from Jack. All in favor, say aye.
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 Are there any opposed? Say no and raise your hand. Okay, I don't see any no's, so the motion carries. All right, thanks. Next project, 5558 Thistle Creek Watershed Restoration Phase 2. Go ahead.
All right, so the second phase of this, we're really trying to adopt the philosophy of treating the entire watershed on these projects. So instead of just doing a bullhog project and nothing else, we've been looking at other opportunities to improve the habitat in this surrounding area. So this is located north of Indianola, and we have so this first year we did work. It's going right now. We have bullhog work going on our Last and Draw WMA and on the Forest Service. And I don't know if you do adjacent projects, Daniel, that will pull up. That's a lot of work in the area. But anyway, we did a bunch of seeding on the fire, and kind of where the straight line is on that yellow polygon, we've done work on the Forest Service side this year. So this year we want to come on our side on the Last and Draw WMA and do some more bullhog work in there. Then we want to continue doing BDA work, so kind of the long lines there in Thistle Creek, and we've got landowners interested. The NRCS is doing a lot of work in the area as well to respond to the fires, and so it's not shown on this project, but they are doing a lot of work in the area. That yellow polygon is an area we want to do some seeding with our Mad Max dozer. Basically, it just rips, scalps little rows in the ground and seeds. And we want to see how effective that can be on this. We've lost our shrub component. I don't know if there's any images. Sorry about that. Need to load some photos, but basically we've lost all our shrubs from the fire, and so we're trying to get that component back. Funding this year, asking for money for bullhog work, so we'll do some seeding, aerial seeding. We'll do some work with the BDAs and the drill seeding with the Mad Max dozer. It's a important area for mule deer winter range on Spencer, Fork, WMA, and Last and Draw. When we do our spring winter range condition examinations, we found very poor condition of the sagebrush that is there. And so we're really trying to alleviate pressure on that remaining sagebrush by opening up these juniper areas. And last year we also sprayed the cheatgrass in the understory, so hopefully we'll start getting some regeneration. But definitely we'll get benefits on sport fish in the BDA work as well. And turkeys, I believe, are in the canyon up there and Thistle Creek as well.
All right, any questions for Robbie on this?
No question. This is Darren, but this is a great project. That winter range for big game in there was pretty dismal due to the droughts and whatnot, and the fires that came through there pretty much wiped that out. So this is a pretty essential project. So thanks for bringing this to our attention, Robbie.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks, Darren. Any other comments?
I've got a comment on your BDAs. If you would go in and remap those so it's not showing way more acres of riparian work, that would be awesome.
Yeah, sorry about that, Allison. I did a few of my projects, but I haven't gone back and fixed all those yet. So I can definitely do that.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Allison. Any other discussion? Okay, if not, do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion to approve this for tentative funding.
Thanks, Darren. Do we have a second?
Second that.
Okay, we have a second from Daniel. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed, say no and raise your hand. Okay, I don't see any no's, so the motion carries. All right, thanks. The next project is 5561 North Sheeprocks Watershed Restoration Phase 2. Go ahead.
Okay, so we've done a lot of work in this area. The sage-grouse population, as you probably know, has been struggling, and so we've just been putting a lot of funding into removing. You can see the map there. We've treated thousands and thousands of acres of juniper, trying to get that sagebrush back for sage-grouse, as well as improving the winter range for big game. It's also a limited entry unit for mule deer, our only one in our region. And so we want to put a lot of work in this area. So this is focusing on the north side of the sheeprocks. We did work last year, and that's ongoing as well. We've done a lot of BDA work. You can see in those kind of along the creeks there, and that's been really fun to see the benefits of that already, and we'll continue to do that work. And then we'll do some juniper removal work as the bigger polygons there. Really try and target those areas between the leks. There are several sage-grouse leks in that area. I'm trying to open up that habitat. And then we're doing some shrub planting. I think there are some photos on this one. But yeah, this just shows you there's fires went through here and they reseeded with, non-native grass mixes. And so it's just become a monoculture of grasses. That's one of the only remaining sagebrush in the area around the lek where the sage-grouse focus most of their nesting effort. And sage-grouse actually nested underneath that shrub there, only one it could find. And so we really want to try to get more sagebrush out there. This is a photo of the BDA work on one of the smaller creeks. Any more photos? And just kind of showing the juniper in the area that we're trying to target. And then this shows, you probably have seen this, but our technique for getting the shrub restoration in there. We'll do seeding in those rows as well as planting these older shrubs with those protectors on them. And for all that work, it's a pretty cheap project. Most expensive part is the lop and scatter. Yeah, we're asking $15,000.
All right, any questions for Robbie on this one? Okay, pretty straightforward. Do we have a motion on this?
I'll make a motion to tentatively approve this project for funding consideration.
Thanks, Paul. Do we have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Thanks, Jack. All in favor, say aye.
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 Is there any opposed, say no and raise your hand. Okay, I don't see any no's, so the motion carries. Okay. Next one, 5552 Ephraim Watershed Restoration Phase 3. Go ahead.
All right, so this is really a partnership with the Forest Service. They've been doing a lot of work in this area the last couple of years, and we're just finishing up some of the last remaining portions of this project. And really the goal is we're targeting the areas where there's infrastructure with mechanical treatments of removing the conifer to get the aspen back and reduce fire risk. And then we'll be doing some prescribed fire as well. Yeah, you can see that pile burn. And then we'll be doing some BDA work as well in this area, and potentially even putting beavers back into the system in the future. And then down lower, also incorporated some shrub restoration down in the foothills there. Yeah, there you go. And that's on our Black Hill WMA. That's really struggling to get the shrub component back. There's been some efforts in the past that haven't worked out, and so we are just continuing to try to get that back. You see the shrubs out there, and they're just little bonsai trees. They've just been chewed to the stems. But here's some of the work we've been doing already, making piles, and then they'll come back in and burn. And you can see it really opens up that area and gets the aspen getting the nutrients it needs to thrive. Just some more photos of that. So it's exciting to see some of you came out and looked at that work with us this last year, and we'll just continue to build on the efforts we've already made and make some progress. And there are big NEPA projects also. This is basically covering from Ephraim Canyon to Manti Canyon. And then we have big NEPA projects covering the rest of the Manti on the west side of Skyline Ridge. So we're just chipping away at this, and this is exciting because it's actually on the groundwork that's going on this year. So important area for mule deer, elk, some moose, lots of forest grouse, turkeys, and then we'll hopefully benefit some fish species as well, improve the fishing, the BDAs.
All right, any questions for Robbie on this one? Okay, don't see any questions or discussion. Do we have a motion on this?
I'll move that we tentatively approve it for funding.
Thanks, Jack. Any second?
I'll second that.
We have a second from Darren. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
If there are any opposed, say no and raise your hand. Okay, don't see any no's. The motion carries. Okay, the last one for Central Region, West Desert Aspen Regeneration. Go ahead.
Okay, I don't know if Mark's on here, but I can take this. That's not the right project.
5148.
You said that West Desert Aspen, right?
It's 5146.
Thanks, Tyler.
All right, so this is a BLM project, and Brad Jessup is the one that's in charge of this, and he's targeting the few aspen stands that are out there in the West Desert, and I believe they're kind of spread apart, but there's one down there by the Tintix, and then there's one on the Anaki. Yeah. So, very valuable aspen stands on these West Desert mountain ranges where there's very limited aspen. and we're just trying to go in there and keep the conifer from totally taking over and choking out these aspen stands. See if he has any photos on here. So yeah, they're just hanging on there. So the idea is to go in there and remove the conifer, try and get that aspen healthier and coming back. And that's going to benefit our mule deer populations that are out there and elk. See if there's any more. I don't think he's asking for a ton of money on this one. So yeah, it looks like about 90,000 from WRI and 17 from you guys. And let's see what the species he has. Or you guys have for species on there. Definitely a big game. And, you know, a forest grouse for sure. So some upland game as well.
Okay. Any questions for Robbie? Okay, I don't see any questions. Do we have a motion?
We'll make the motion to tentatively approve this for funding.
Thanks, Darren. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second from Paul. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed, say no and raise your hand. Okay, I don't see any no's. Motion carries. Thanks, Robbie.
Okay, yeah, thank you guys.
Some good projects. So, all right, Southeast region. Looks like we've got Nicole on. We'll start with 5446 Salina Creek Ecosystem Restoration Project Phase 3. And maybe before you jump in, we're at 11:30. So we'll look to, we've got 5 projects here. So we can probably go a little past 12. So go for it.
I think I can make this happen in the next half hour. We only have 5.
Yep.
Hi, everybody. This is Nicole Nilsson. I'm the restoration biologist here in the Southeast region. The first project that I'm going to talk to you about is Salina Creek Ecosystem Restoration. This is a project that our local Forest Service group has brought in. You kind of heard Kendall talk about some of the other projects that are in the southern region, but kind of nearby. Kelly Cornwall, once again, I think you heard that name quite a few times. So he's quite active out there and getting stuff done. But this project has multiple components. There's a prescribed fire component, which will kind of improve summer range conditions for deer and elk on the South Manti. There's a chaining component with seeding. So that's kind of our transition winter range, and especially on light winters like this, that veg community really could benefit from that, really kind of give it a boost in nutrition so that, we're really benefiting the deer and elk that use that area. Let's see, I think there's a lop and scatter component. There's a stream component, but, we're really excited about this project here in the Southeastern region. This was our #1 WRI project, but in our internal rankings, we rank this our #2 deer and #2 elk project. The South Manti has kind of struggled lately, and BYU is currently doing some research on deer production in that area for us. So we're really excited to see some summer range, transition winter range work going on in this area. And with the ownership boundaries on there, I think that's a really good thing to look at. This isn't just Forest Service land. There's also some private property. There's a CWMU there. So the Forest Service is really bringing all of the players together and just trying to make this an ecosystem project, not just a Forest Service project. So last week when we took this to the the ECP meeting, they put quite a large amount of money on it. They can really see the importance to this project, and us as a division and our local biologists, myself, we are really pumped about this project. So we're hoping to see this happen. Any questions?
Nicole, I see that this project is under the big PJ NEPA decision. I didn't know that NEPA decision allowed for chaining.
I probably should have an answer for you on that. I haven't really asked Kelly about that, so I don't really have a good answer for you on that.
I'm sure
But
it's fine. I was just curious about that, if it was covered under that or not.
If you want, I can reach out to Kelly and get back to you, Tyler.
No, I'll ask him next time I see him.
Okay.
Tyler, this is Kendall. Hey, I think just to follow up with that question, we pulled off a 410 acre chaining right here associated with the Burrville on the Forest Service. I know there's a chaining aspect on that gooseberry, so I gotta believe that, as it follows suit with the Salina Creek project, it would fall under that NEPA umbrella.
Okay, that's good. Thanks, Kendall.
Yeah, to kind of add to what I've been saying there, there's some of those projects that Kendall's working with Kelly on, and there's some stuff that the Manti LaSalle's working on just north of there. So this project really plays into a greater suite of projects that's going to happen on that South Manti and north part of the Fish Lake National Forest. So I think this is going to be a really great project to have happen for deer, elk, and all other wildlife in the area.
All right. Any other questions on this one?
Could you pull up this? Oh, there it is right there. Thanks. Now, just a comment. This project needs to happen. It's well overdue. So thanks for bringing this to our attention, Nicole.
Yeah, we're pretty pumped here in the southeastern region about this one. It came out as our number 2 deer and elk project internally, so we're very excited.
All right. Any additional questions? Okay, I don't see any. Do we have a motion on this one?
I'll make the motion.
I'll make a motion.
Tentative funding. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, Darren.
Okay, we'll take a motion from Darren. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion from Darren, a second from Paul. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed, say no and raise your hand. Okay, don't see any no's. Motion carries. All right, next one, Miller Creek Restoration 4.0.
All
This is a brand new
right, so
project, right? No.
Yep, brand new. You guys have never heard about this one. It's a clean one owner.
Yep. Go ahead.
All right, so this has been our watershed project as a region. So we've really tried to focus on our aquatics aspect as well as game and non-game species. So this project's just been kind of moving along, and kind of a really exciting side note. We've started working on beaver dam analog structures in Miller Creek in 2016. We've slowly been gaining momentum. And we've moved to different landowners. We've worked on ConocoPhillips's land. And yesterday I got a phone call from another private landowner on that, wanting to know how he can get in on that. So we really have gained momentum. It's become our showcase. We know that the BDAs are working. Hopefully one of these days we can put some fish in there. I think we're getting really close. But that's been a really exciting, part of our project that we've had great success on. And in this phase, we're moving on to the Gordon Creek Wildlife Management Area with the BDAs. My hope and dream is to see the second water stream and some of the other streams that we'll eventually work on become, a stream fishery for our community. We're not that far from town. It's a great place to be, a little higher in elevation. And my hope and dream is to see that become quite a nice little fishery for our local community. And then moving on to the upland component, we've done quite a bit of upland pinyon juniper encroachment work. And this is just moving north onto our Gordon Creek Wildlife Management Area. We have encroaching pinyon and juniper in that area. So we're looking at just doing some lop and scatter areas. The BLM is doing some retreatment on past phases of projects that they've done. So we're just trying to maintain, while it's still quite cheap, doing lop and scatter, and then kind of sprucing up the stuff that we've done in the past. So that's kind of, oh, and another component of the stream, Miller Creek, we are moving downstream more into, there's kind of a, I don't know if you call it a community or not, but there's a community of Miller Creek, more agricultural setting. And, you know, as a group, as a partnership, we've had people reach out there and want to do work. So we're bringing the NRCS to the table, you know, more private landowners. You know, our partnership on this has been really incredible. Jordan Nilsson's been a great partner. Jamie Nogle at Turkey Federation's been a great partner. Wild Utah Project's been amazing to work with. So the partnership on this just continues to grow with the landowners that keep finding out about it, you know, and our other natural resource partners are, you know, seeing the work that we're doing and they're coming to the table. So this project, I thought we were coming to the end, but you know, people keep reaching out and there's more work to do until I guess we hit the Price River and then I guess chip our way down the Price River a little more too. So that's Miller Creek 4.0 this year.
So while we're looking at the budget here, I'll also mention that, you know, this not only a hallmark for the region, you know, it's been a hallmark for the division statewide, showing that there's such a huge collaboration and how this has been, you know, tremendously beneficial to create this collaboration and working internally across section lines to plan and build it, and all the partners coming in. It's pretty amazing effort.
Yeah, it really has been. I mean, beyond the partnership, it's been really fun to work with everybody and kind of get to know them on a more personal level. So yeah, it's really kind of built some relationships too.
Any other questions for Nicole on this? All right, do we have a motion on this?
I'll make the motion to tentatively approve the project for funding consideration.
Thanks, Daniel. Do we have a second?
I'll second it. Just want to say also that, you know, just echoing what Eric said, this is exactly what we've been asking for from a WRI perspective, these large partnerships and watershed scale projects. So love Miller Creek.
Yep. Great job. Okay, so we have a motion from Daniel and a second from Tyler. All in favor, say aye.
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 Or any opposed, say no and raise your hand. Okay, I don't see any no's. Motion carries. Okay. Next project, 5527 LaSalle Abajo prescription and FY22.
All right, so moving down to the south part of our region, down on the LaSalles and the Abajos. You guys have seen this project come in the past, but we've kind of changed up what we're thinking about and how we're doing this. So we're still bringing the prescribed fire part and maybe kind of an update on this current funding phase. So we do have funding for some of these prescribed burn units. They were going to work on that stuff that's yellow right there outside of Monticello. They were going to start lighting tomorrow, and I just got an email, unfortunately, today that they are outside of prescription with the weather conditions that we're getting. They're not going to be able to light that off quite yet. We're still going to keep our fingers crossed that this will happen, you know, before the spring's up, but who knows? But we are still really optimistic. I did spend some time chatting with some of our sportsman groups in that area. This was their number one project that they wanted to see happen. They want to see anything on the Abajos and on Elk Ridge, and this project really would kind of help promote that, especially with prescribed fire in that area. But I think one of the other exciting parts about this project is if you'll zoom in right there by Monticello, we have a mastication part of this project. So we have been working on what we consider shingle mill. And so that's just east of the yellow polygons right now. We've got really great response. So when we did the mastication work, it's just right off of the highway this year. I can't believe the response of people calling to tell me how much they loved that project and how they wanted to see it keep going. I mean, this is just people from the community. I'm not even sure how they knew it was me or how they got my phone number, but it was really quite refreshing to hear some of that feedback. So the community's loving what they're seeing, and they would love to see some more of that. So we have that mastication part, and then there's also some mastication work on the LaSalle's towards the north end called Harpole Mesa. So we'll continue, doing a little bit of mastication work in that area. This is on the upper edge of our crucial winter range in the Castle Valley area for deer and elk in this area. So we're, the encroaching pinyon juniper in that area is, it needs some work. So we're very excited about all of the different components of this project. This one was, ranked quite high in our region as an internal ranking. So it came out as our number 3 deer and our number 4 elk project. We're really saying things that have a summer range component. We'd really like to see that work done, and we really feel like that's going to have a big bang for our buck. And there you can see some of our encroaching, pinyon and juniper. So yeah, we're quite excited about this project, and and so are the local sportsman groups. And when I took this to the local Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation group in Moab, they were quite ecstatic about this project and about the next one that I'm going to talk about too.
All right. Any questions for Nicole on this? This looks like a great project. So I don't see any questions. Do we have a motion on this?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, we have a motion from Paul.
Oh.
A second from
Jack.
Jack. Gotcha. All right. All in favor, say aye.
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 Is there any opposed? Say no and raise your hand. Okay, I don't see any opposed. Motion carries. All right. 5507 LaSalle Creek Watershed Restoration. Go for it.
Okay, I think this is going to be the one that you're going to see coming time and time again, kind of like Miller Creek. I think this is our next Miller Creek, or our Miller Creek for the southern part of our region. But this one's really exciting. It's got quite a few different components. Last year on that big block that you can see right there by LaSalle, we got funding to start working on the arc clearance, so that the Forest Service could start NEPA. So we're asking for funding this year to help the Forest Service do the NEPA on that area. So that will really kind of help that south end of the LaSalle's. Just below that, there's an old chaining that the trees are, probably 5-6 feet tall. Be cheap and easy to do some maintenance on that right now. So we're looking at doing that. And then as we move kind of north, we see, is that Beaver Creek the first stop? So we have Beaver Creek. So this area has the greenback cutthroat trout in it. So what we're looking at doing with the Forest Service is putting in a few BDAs to create some pool habitat. The Forest Service is also working on, there's a road crossing there. So we're looking at kind of doing a little bit of work there to keep the sediment from accruing in the stream there. So we're looking at doing some, kind of habitat improvements and then some protection for the fish in that stream. Then as we move a little bit further north, there's the 2 Mile Creek crossing that the SITLA has they want to kind of change it from a culvert to kind of a cattle guard crossing. Jordan and I have been working with Slate Stewart at SITLA. They already have that cattle guard structure in place. So we're just looking for a little bit of money to help install that. I did put that on the fast track list of, if we could get the equipment now. Jordan has the stream alteration permit done. So we could get that put in place if we got that fast track funding. There's some fencing that's been, I think that's actually already in place, that letdown fencing, but this is to help some of our grazing rotation, which is going to be really, really quite an improvement to, help increase our forbs and grasses and, not just have the cows everywhere, to kind of get them more on a managed system. But I think the part that I'm the most excited about in this project is the collaboration that we have going with SITLA on some forestry practices. And I think Adam's online with us. So Adam, if you're on, do you want to talk about the collaboration that we're working on there?
Yeah, sure. Thanks. So this is some classic aspen restoration work that we've been doing, just a continuation of that. We're working in the lower reaches of the aspen communities and in the upper reaches. If you look at the map, we have 2 sites on the north block and a couple on the south block identified, different elevation breaks between the two. There's some diversity within those communities, some of the communities. So we're looking at some pure stands, persistent stands, cereal stands that we're treating. Kind of some of the same work here that we're doing on tabby. Some of the more like the stand here, more decadent stands to help control the herbivory activity. We're going to utilize some of the material to build a brush fence around those areas. So not all those polygons will have an entire brush fence around it. We're just going to isolate those really hard hit, high traffic areas and try to help, give them as much advantage as possible to encourage recruitment using mechanical treatments. Again, with the coppice type cut, legacy trees will be left in place where it makes sense. And I believe we may do some treatments on the with the snowberry where it has taken over in some of those stands as well, and knock some of that stuff back. So I think that's about it. The pictures kind of explain what we got going on, and you can see in the picture she's got pulled up. Early 2000s. We started experiencing I guess I would say about 2005. We really started experiencing some of the effects of the SAD epidemic in that area. It's just kind of continued to do its thing. It's starting to taper off a little bit, but given the last year's moisture and this year's moisture totals, I wouldn't doubt to see it pick up again and reach its way up into the upper elevation stands. And that's kind of what it's been doing. Is it started in the lower reaches, and this picture she's got pulled up. This is a typical stand in those lower communities, and it's just kind of working its way up the hill. And our plan, like Nicole had mentioned, is this will be just a long-term project to target these stands and try to restore as many as we can in the future. Any questions?
And Adam's already done some of this work in that area, and he's got great aspen regeneration. So that's why we would like to continue this. I mean, we've seen a benefit from this project for elk, and in our region, this came out as our #1 deer project and our #3 elk project. So as an internal regional ranking, this project is very important to us. We're really excited, and like I said, I think this is going to be one that you see coming time and time again, like Miller Creek has.
I'll just make a comment on this project. You brought up kind of the green lineage, Colorado River cutthroat, and some of the work you're doing on Beaver Creek. From a fisheries perspective, the work you're doing is very beneficial as a population. You're going to see us do a lot of work on the next few years. So I'm glad to see that happen. That's a species, that's a group of fish that we're trying to conserve. So I think the work we're going to do is going to really help us out.
Yeah, we're hoping that we can come up with some other ideas in the future to continue doing work. I mean, we're going to start kind of small with a few BDAs, but I think that working on that stream crossing is going to be probably the biggest benefit that we can do in that stream for those fish. But yeah, I'm really excited that we have this, we can work on multiple species again and work on the LaSalles, because I have kind of a special love for the LaSalles, and Adam does too. So yeah, we're kind of excited about this project and the collaboration that we're building here.
Yeah, I would like to make one comment. Can you pull the picture back up of the 2 mile project? One clarification on the cattle guard, just in case there's kind of a question out there in the back of your mind. The cattle guard is going to double as obviously a cattle guard to control movement between the pastures with the grazer, but it's gonna double as a bridge as well. That's the reason why we're doing that. and dovetail into our new pasture project, fencing project.
Yeah, Daniel, if you'll go to those aerial images they were like some drone footage that somebody had taken. They're those ones right at the bottom. That's kind of what Adam's talking about. So we'll pull that culvert out. There's going to be some fencing that goes through there. So this cattle guard will just make sure that people don't leave the fence down, because that's always the big challenge.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Daniel, maybe hit that finance page again one more time and see the Habitat Council amount. If you can. Okay. All right, any other comments or questions to Nicole about this project? All right, do we have a motion on this one?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, motion from Tyler.
I'll second it.
Okay, with a second from Randy. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed, say no and raise your hand. Okay, I don't see any no's. Motion carries. Okay, last one for the day, Nicole, 5639 Lower Fish Creek Forest Health Restoration.
All right, I'll try to make it short, sweet, and painless. So this is our Lower Fish Creek Wildlife Management Area, just downstream from the Schofield Reservoir. So this area was kind of targeted by the counties and forestry, fire, and state lands with that catastrophic fire money a few years ago. And we implemented this project last year, and we really like what we saw. So we're coming back with a little bit more work to do in that area. So you can see there's quite a bit of different things going on here. There's going to be some thinning. There will be some clear cutting to really create aspen regeneration. There will be piles, and forestry, fire, and state lands is going to help us, burn those piles. There's there's some shaded fuel breaks. So there's just a lot of things going on in this project. But what really the bottom line is, what we're excited about is all of these practices are going to promote aspen regeneration, and it's also going to help create better understory conditions, creating those grasses and forbs in this area. So we're really excited. This is, on our wildlife management area in this area. So yeah, it's also a sage grouse area. That's a great picture of like one of the areas that was worked on in the past, and that's what you could see why we want to continue that work in there. There's a lot more to still be done and worked on, but this is one of the reasons it was targeted for that catastrophic fire money is right below Fish Creek. That is the main water source for the town of Helper. So we're really trying to work with the communities and promote, great wildlife habitat, as well as reduce fire risk conditions for the community down below. We also have, you've probably heard the work that's going on in Helper along the stream. So this project is kind of an upland component, will really kind of help water conditions coming downstream. So we're really excited, for the downstream effects, but we're also excited about the actual habitat improvement on the WMA. We took this to ECP last week. They have put a little bit of money on it, so we're excited about what's the potential here and what we could do on this project. So yeah, is there any questions for me? And if anybody's ever been in that area, the Lower Fish Creek it's kind of a fun stream to go fishing on. So you should go visit it for sure.
All right, any questions?
I didn't put any aquatic, like sport fish, in the breakdown. But listening to Nicole talk about the project more, wondering if we should have some sport fish in that breakdown.
So I'd look to Randy or Paul to advise on that, maybe.
I don't know. I need to see the map a little bit more, how, directly related. We're kind of talking to the riparian area for some of this work, but if it's more upland, I'm not sure if it's going to provide a ton of fishery benefit, even though, the WMA itself contains kind of a popular creek.
Yeah, so these are the slopes right off of Lower Fish Creek. So yeah, the concern there and why we were working with the communities was that if those slopes burned, we knew that we would get ash and debris flows into Fish Creek itself, and then that could end up impacting downstream. So, I mean, I can see where this could have a fish benefit, but there are no actual in-stream, work that's going on in that area.
Yeah, Nicole, I just jumped on, but most of the benefits from this project will kind of be secondary. We've had some of the river groups kind of come to us and just request that we kind of make sure that we treat these upland areas appropriately so we don't have a bunch of sediment running to the stream. So it's primarily secondary benefits to the fish.
Okay.
I just have one plug to add here for these guys in terms of sediment control. So I've got some history working in that area. That property was previously owned by Stella, so I've got some background on site. It's fairly steep slopes and very highly erosive soil types, and there is evidence of some major cutting in some of those shallower drainages towards the bottom. And so, yeah, to do everything you can to control and maintain vegetation on that slope would definitely benefit the stream.
All right. Any other questions about this one? Yeah, we're probably okay leaving those allocations where they're at, I guess, unless somebody wanted to change it, but. We have a motion on this.
I'll make the motion to approve it.
Okay, motion from Tyler. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a second from Jack. All in favor, say aye.
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 I just want to say thanks everybody for your time. Appreciate
Yep.
it.
Are there any opposed? Say no and raise your hand. Okay, I don't see any, so the motion carries. Thanks, Nicole. And that was our last project for today. And I guess I need to really say thanks to all of our partners. We have Trust Lands folks on with us today. Really appreciate that partnership, and working with all of our staff and our staff being able to, do more coordination with all of these partners is great. So I'll look to Daniel, Allison, Danny, Lisa. Is there any business items we need to take care of before we adjourn? Okay, I don't see.
April 28th is our next funding Habitat Council.
Right, so April 28th is our next meeting, our funding meeting. There could end up being a couple straggler projects that get thrown on that agenda, but we'll look to hold that meeting.
We may have a habitat management plan review as well for that meeting, trying to get that finished.
Okay. Do you?
And I just put the link to the spreadsheet in the chat one more time in case you missed it the first time. And I'll just keep that updated through the next few weeks as we get more funding information, so that it will probably change, but it'll be the same link. So save that spot.
All right. Sounds good. Any other comments? Okay, if not, I want to thank everybody, thank the council for the time that you're serving. Daniel, Danny, Allison, Lisa, for all your help. The AV team, thank you so much for all of your hard work. Michael and Paul and Carmen, whoever else you got there. No, I greatly appreciate everybody's work on this. That is really good way to fund these projects. And so, if there's not any additional comments, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn till April 28th.
Move to adjourn.
Okay, we have a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second? You guys really want to stick around?
Second it.
Tyler. Okay. All in favor say aye.
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 Okay. We are adjourned till April 28th. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.
Thanks, Michael. Daniel, Danny, thanks so much for all your help, and Allison. And Lisa,